right. Hey, welcome to Black Man Talk Therapy. And I got my man HV, the life coach, with us. What's going on, HV?
Chilling, growing, prospering, enjoying life. How are you?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you for coming on, man, for this lecture, and being the co-lecturer. How do you feel about that?
Feel pretty good, man.
That's
Looking
good.
forward
That's
to it.
good. So last time that we left off, I was talking about the causes of Black men needing therapy or Black men going through mental health issues. And today, I can't talk about a problem and not come up with a solution. And today, we came up with the solution here, a PowerPoint presentation filled with about 50 something slides about how marriage is effective to minimizing mental health issues in our community. And I got the two pictures here about Black marriage right here. And I got two quotes, two of my favorite quotes about marriage. And the first thing is that marriage is about concessions. And I like the word concessions because it means you're conceding to that person because you have made a commitment. And then the second quote is marriage begins when you know the ugly parts of your partner, right? Because when you finally know the ugly parts of your partner, that's when you actually uh, have to love them for them because those ugly parts is the ones that's gonna separate you in your marriage.
Hmm.
But when you get through those, that's when you're like, okay, I really love this person because I could tolerate that. What you thought about that? What's your thinking on this?
I mean, I just made a reaction when you said marriage begins when you know the ugly parts of your partner. That's fascinating because it's basically saying you're past the honeymoon phase and you're really thinking about this now, right? Like, okay, but my thing is, wouldn't you want to get to know those parts before you get married? The ugly parts. Now, granted, there's a shift, in marriages after you get married, right? You're not going to show every single part of yourself, I'm assuming, before you get married, because you're still wanting to court this person and not allow them to choose you. You still got to get to that point where you guys are engaged. You still want to get to that point where you guys actually get married. But once that happens, how long are you going to keep doing those things that allowed you to get that person, right? Right. So if I'm a man pursuing a woman, am I still doing those intimate things that made her come with me and be like, you know what, maybe this guy's interesting? Or is she still doing the things that got me attracted to her to begin with, right? But then you
Absolutely,
just see them
absolutely.
be themselves, not necessarily I'm gonna be this person or I'm gonna show them the best part of me. You just see them be their natural selves. So that's true. Marriage begins when you know the ugly parts of your partner.
Hmm. And HV, you're married
I am married. It's been
with
about
a
four
daughter,
years
with a
now.
beautiful daughter.
Thank you.
Uh, we're gonna get right into it too, man. And I got this from my boy. Shout out to Mark. He's a we call him an OG uncle. We call him Uncle. Everybody in the hood, there's always an uncle in the hood, and we
Facts.
call him Unc. And he went to Mega Evers College, and he wrote this paper. And I had sent him this PowerPoint, and then he had sent me this paper, and I felt like it's fitting. The paper was fitting to the PowerPoint. Um, he wrote on youth volatility. He said the violent, explosive nature in which the youth of my neighborhood respond to trivial life issues has escalated over the past decade. In the first sentence, he already is letting us know that it's violent. There's an explosive behavior going on because that's why he's using the word nature. And he's saying that it's the youth of the neighborhood that are doing it, but they're doing it for little things, things that don't need to be escalated. Then he says in the next sentence, their response or reactions to instance of feeling slighted by words or actions generally turns confrontational. So he's saying that these youth don't have the emotional intelligence to understand that these words does not merit a confrontation or a violent reaction or anger. But
Hmm.
Mark is saying that these youth are because of the words, their emotions are getting the best of them.
That's facts.
And it says this has become common among those who age range from 13 to 25 years old. So now he's given a demographic in terms of who is violent and explosive, and he's saying it's the young people between 13 and 25. These are the years. Aren't these the years where you like get emotional, like your emotions come in to you as a teenager?
I mean, that's the age where your hormones definitely rapidly increase. You're going through puberty, and if you're not set with the right foundation on how you're supposed to handle them, then you're gonna express them how you know best, and you don't know
Absolutely.
anything, you know. So
That's when the knowledge is low, but the emotion is on high.
exactly.
And then he says here that the vitriol used to express their feelings about any subject is usually without discretion or regard as to whom they may offend. So now he's first of all, he uses the word vitriol. So he's like he's describing the anger to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says it's without discretion. I like that he used the word without discretion because he's saying that there's a manner of behavior. Discretion, if you're doing something discreetly, it's because you understand that it's not good for you to show it in public.
Mm-hmm.
But where do you learn that from? You learn that from your home, from your parents. So he's saying that these kids are expressing their anger in not a discreet way or and not in a way that it's good for public consumption, right? And he says my neighbors whose age range from 35 and older have expressed their concerns and worries about this trend because it has culminated into a teenager being shot on the playground. So he's saying that it's a trend. That means it's a consistent occurrence, something that's happening consistently. And because this is happening consistently, that increased the probability of a teenager getting shot on the street. Right? And then he says there's a sense of trepidation among the latter age group which permeates the neighborhood air. The unpredictability of the youth in my neighborhood has instilled a mindset in the elders that the youth are better off to their own devices. Most upsetting is that the precariousness of our youth has deterred the elders from enjoying the lush, spacious area in which we live. So now he's explaining that the way the youth are behaving are causing a detriment to the community. This escalating issue can be attributed to the change in demographics, the change in median income, or the indiscriminatory, indiscreet use of marijuana by the aforementioned age group of the youth in my neighborhood. So now he's giving the reason in the last sentence. But right now, Mark is describing a behavior that is explosive, that is anger, that is without emotional intelligence. And I'm pretty sure the audience is probably trying to figure out, like, how does that connect to marriage?
Right.
And this is what the PowerPoint is going to explain.
So we talk about a demographic of youth going through an environment where they're literally seeing upbringings of other people doing the same actions that they're about to perform, right? So if they don't have anyone at home teaching them certain things, right? We're about to get into that. They have no one at home. Hey, this is not what you're supposed to do. This is how you're supposed to go about it. And why do you have those issues? You already talked about that in your last slide, I'm assuming.
Yeah. The next and the sides coming up too.
Right. So now we have people in a household that they don't even know. They don't have no structure, no discipline, right? So now they go into the streets, they see these behaviors, they try to mimic it because that's all they know. Now they get emotional about something. Like growing up, what we have, the newest shoes, right? And somebody steps in your shoes, hey yo fam, what's word? And you think about you're gonna fight somebody on site over some shoes, something so materialistic that you could easily replace. Now maybe it's not easy to replace for every individual, causing even more of a ruckus, right? As you can see in the last slide.
That's a fact.
It says at the bottom, it says the escalating issue can be attributed to the change in demographics or the change in median income. So I'm already talking about the shoes right there. Maybe they can't afford another pair of shoes, right? And so now that change in income, they just got their nicer shoes. It was a gift from their mom, their uncle, their friend, or they got it on their own and it took a while to get there. It's going to be upsetting for them. But how they choose to express that is the key component.
Absolutely, that's that emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So this PowerPoint is basically brought to you by like awareness, um, mental health awareness. We're doing this PowerPoint to bring awareness to an issue. We can't control the issue. We can't uh, uh, stop it unless we have the community together and
Mm-hmm.
have the awareness of the issue so that we could work together to end the issue or to minimize the issue. Enjoy the world responsibly. This is also part of this PowerPoint. A lot of things that Mark pointed out was that the community felt a trepidation, and they couldn't enjoy the community spaces because of the violence that the youth was perpetrating on the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, because of these youth's behavior, it affected other people's lives. And we're all in this world to share it and enjoy it together. And the number one thing is to enjoy it without hurting somebody else. That's what laws are for. Laws are for protection of other individuals. And the last time we wrote, the last time we was here, we talked about Dr. Steve Perry and how he said that being black in America is the most traumatic experience here in America. And we gave that issue. If you we gave out all those and the reasons how it impacted mental health in the last presentation. So you can look at that. And then we talked about information gap. There's an information gap between the bottom and the top. How do we? How is that? Well, because the more money you have, the more access you have to information. If you know something, that means it was presented to you. The brain needs feedback to change behavior, and the feedback is this PowerPoint. Um, right? We need this behavior to change because, like Mark said in his essay, that trend until it stopped is going to continue to go down until the behaviors, the factors that's making that trend go where it is, until there's a intervention, the behavior is going to continue to trend that way. Anything you got to say about that, HV?
I like that quote. The brain needs feedback to change behavior.
We got that from a PD, remember?
Yeah, from professional development. I
That's a
remember
fact.
that. My thing is that is definitely true to an extent because it's like once the brain has information, it can still choose what it wants to do, right? But once you know better, you should do better. There's a saying that once you know better, you do better. That's not always inherently true. Once you know better, you should do better. You ought to do better. Doesn't mean you're going to do better. But there's a reason why there's a component that's missing. It's the reason why it's gonna help you do better. So you know something, and then why you should do it is gonna make you do something differently, right? If that why is compelling enough, because we're humans.
That's
We don't
right.
operate off of thought. We all did, we'd all be rich by now, right? We'd all be everything we ever wanted. I want this, I want that. Nah, you can't just want it enough. You have to feel it. There's something that's gonna make you do something,
You
right?
got to put the want with the effort.
Exactly. And the emotions are they going to be the driving force behind that, but why you do something, right? So it's not about what you know, it's about why you feel it and what you're going to do about it. So I wrote down yesterday with my boy, we were talking, the mind may know, but the body has to do.
Mm. That's a fact.
You know, so you can know something, if you can know some information, but it's up to you to take on the knowledge. Like you said at the beginning of the slide, this is just information and feedback. They still got to do the work of changing it.
You still got to do the work. Like you get that. Yep. You can definitely get all this information and say, "Damn, this is terrible," but still go back and still make the same mistakes you make. You know what I mean? Still make the same mistakes that our
Mhm.
previous generations made. You know what I mean? So definitely,
You
definitely,
even say it's all amazing and still do the same mistakes. Up to you.
exactly, exactly. It's all about you. Statistics. I didn't take statistics in college. I'm gonna just name that. But I've been learning about statistics more and more as being a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen the power of statistics. Statistics tell stories through numbers,
Mm.
and statistics is the study and the manipulation of data, including ways of gathering, review, analyze, and draw conclusions from data. The two major areas of statistics are descriptive and inferential statistics. A statistical story is one that doesn't just recite data in words, it tells a story about the data. Readers tend to recall ideas more easily through easily than they do data. A statistical story conveys a message that tells readers what happened, who did it, when and where it happened, and hopefully why and how it happened. Reason why I put a lot of statistics in there is because it really does tell us what is happening, when it's happening, where it's happening, and how it's happening. So I put two charts up here just to give us an example before we get into the PowerPoint of human population growth, right? And I put from 10,000 BC to 2000 AD, which, we're in 2023 now, right? And what you see here is that the trend of human population is going up. It's going up. It goes slightly more up when agriculture begins. Why? Because agriculture gives you a surplus of food, which allows you to then eat better, which allows you to settle down, which allows you to build other establishments to help increase the population, right? Infrastructure, homes, helps women settle down in homes to be able to have safer pregnancies, right? Instead of being in the wild, right? Agriculture allowed humans to stop hunting and gathering and settle down, which increases the population, right? And then we see that the population goes up again when they started plowing and irrigation. Plowing irrigation means that now they can even make a lot more food because plowing and irrigation brings the water to the crops.
Mm-hmm.
So then we see a little bit of growth, but again, it's not that much, right? But again, notice that there's an event occurring for then the trend to go up. You get what I'm saying? So something is happening for the trend to go up. And then we see the trend continue to go up and down, right? Over here, it takes a little dip around 1000. That's the Bronze Age collapse. And then it goes down again. It goes back up. And then it takes a dip around 600 to 400 to 600 CE. That's when the Mongols was killing a lot of people in Afro-Eurasia. And then it goes down again with the bubonic plague. So we seeing that the trend gets interrupted based off of an event. Something has to happen. There has to be factors that has to lead to the trend taking a dip, right? But then we see a big jump. And this big jump is the Industrial Revolution. Why is the population skyrocketing during the Industrial Revolution? Because now we could mass produce things. We could mass produce clothes. We can mass produce food. We could send them out. There's trains to bring them to a place, to the long distant places. You got now steam ships that could take you from America to Europe faster. You know what I mean? Like Christopher Columbus brings in different crops to both regions of the world. All of that leads into a skyrocket in population, right? So the trend is going to go up because history is just it's a line with just things happening, right? Anything you want to add to that?
No, this is just self-explanatory at the moment, right? So we're just going over an example of a chart.
Absolutely.
But it is drastic. That is a drastic change in the human evolution, right? Or the
Yeah,
human population growth.
absolutely.
For so long, it's just a steady line, and it may go up a little, it go up down a little, but it's still around that same average, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was its capacity, its carrying capacity. And then it reaches a certain point where there's a tool or a vessel or some type of, you know, experience that people can have and it just drastically alters the entire. I mean, technology. They always talk about it like within the past, what, from 2000 BC all the way up to 1000 AD, people were still riding from chariots on horses to like horse and buggy, right? It was a wheel. Like now you're sitting in the back. You're not standing no more. You're sitting in the back. But then like within the past 100 years alone, we've had greater innovations of technology. Why? Right? Because the more technology you have, the more you can actually get to know information and actually apply it. And but also this, we have. That's what I'm putting in my mind. We also have a greater amount of people in the world. So more
Absolutely.
minds to think about the tasks that we have.
Ooh, we're talking okay. I was just thinking that too. Go ahead.
You know, so more minds. They said two
Uh-huh.
heads are better than one. We have more people focusing on a single problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now that problem's gonna be solved
That's a
real
fact.
quick, real easy.
And also, every human has a different gets a different experience of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They bring their experience, and somebody else bring their experience, and you could probably you probably discover one thing because you got two minds coming together
Mm-hmm.
with two different experiences, two
And
different perspectives.
we're talking about that exact same thing. Like technology brought that capability, right? If we're talking about back in 1920s, if I want to get information, I got to go to the library. I gotta walk down the street to my friend's house, borrow their book, something of that
Absolutely.
nature. Now
Yeah,
I'm
phone
gonna FaceTime you, right?
call.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
call, I'm gonna Google
Uh-huh.
something. Even further. We're in the new age now. We got Chat GPT.
Uh-huh.
They got the AI responding to your information. So it's about to be another shift just like this in our current civilization.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
interesting though.
So, like I said, the brain needs feedback to change behavior. Notice all of these events are actually feedback.
Mm.
All
I
right.
like how you did that.
Yeah. All of you know what I mean? All of these
Oh,
events are actually feedback. Bubonic plague. Oh, damn, this is a disease that's killing us. We need to figure out a way to stop future pandemics. Oh,
mm,
industrial revolution. Oh, we got mass production. Now we could do this. All of these events are actually feedback that change human behavior. We behave way different today than we do 200 years ago,
mm-hmm,
1,000 years ago, 2,000, 10,000 years ago. So all of these are leading to different behaviors. And I'm a big Bible person, not the religious side, but just the knowledge side. It says my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge because you have rejected knowledge, right? It's not only because people are destroyed because they don't have the information, because that's what all knowledge is information, but also they reject it. So basically, if you're coming into this PowerPoint, you can't really be stubborn. You know what I mean? You have to be open to what we're saying,
mm-hmm.
right? Because you don't want to reject information. You want to take in information and filter it out based off what you know, or based off what you know and what your experiences are. You feel what I'm saying?
That's facts. Now I got something to say on that too.
Go ahead.
Growing up, I was in foster care. So the people
Mm-hmm.
that raised me, it was an Ethiopian father and a woman from North Carolina, a black woman from North Carolina, right? So she always used to tell me like we're in a generation where people don't want to read anymore. She was like, growing up, my great grandfather had to fight to want to read, to learn to read, to do any of these things. And
That's
now you
fact.
have all the access to the world, and you don't even want to read. You're rejecting the idea of knowledge, things that our ancestors fought for. You know, we're only here today because somebody in our past decided it was important enough to leave a legacy. What are we
That's a
doing
fact.
with that sacrifice, with that time, with that love and that idea of building for the future, right? You got to stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about the future, right? So I just want to add that in there for people that think they want to reject the information or they want to keep a closed mind. Just be open to the
Absolutely.
idea that is your legacy that's going to be built here in the future.
But also, but
Legacy
also, the
for you to put there.
information is supposed to help you make better decisions,
Mm,
right? Every time you make a decision, you want to be informed. You want to make informed decisions. So the information is supposed to help you make those informed decisions, right? So the issue, all right. Right now we got two demographics: non-Hispanic, Black, from 1 to 19 years old. Going back to what Mark said in his essay. He said that the age group is 35. No, he said from 13 to 25, right? And look at the percentages here, right? 35%, 35.3% homicide rate. That means for every 100 deaths, 35 of them are homicides. And this is for Black men 1
The
to 9.
number one death between their age group is 35% homicide.
Yep. And then from 20 to 44, out of 100 people, 27.6% of them die from homicides. So that's in deaths, right? And then for Black women, 15, 1 to 19, and 8.3, 20 to 44. Now, these statistics are just numbers, right? You know, people are dying. Homicide just means that people are dying, right? But then if you compare them with these numbers, 1 to 19, 4.7%. That's the female. Male, 5.2% in homicides. This is white. When we compare it,
We could even compare their ranks too.
CDC. Huh?
We could even compare their rankings. Like if you go back to the first one,
Mm-hmm.
the number one death for men between the ages of 1 to 19 is homicide. The number two death for women between that age is 15 is number 2. It's homicide, right? Go to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for non-Hispanic white female. The number 5 the top 5, right? So it's number 5 on the list. It's not even number 1. It's not number 2. It's number 5 on the list. And then for men, it's number 4 on the list. Like there's 3 other things above them before they even reach that level.
Absolutely. And
it's wild.
the comparison is, hey, what is going on that 35%? Why are we not at 5%? That should be the question. Remember, statistics tell stories. What is the difference? What is really the story here, right? Like, why is it that we have a higher homicide rate than our white companions in America, right? Then we go to the Asians. The Asians are number 5, just like white people. They're number 5 for the males, and for the females homicide is not even top 5.
It's not even there.
It's not even there. It's not even top 5 right here, right? So these two are showing a different trend than we are. For some reason, we're trending upwards. So now, what are the factors that's leading to this trend, right? This 35%. So 35% homicide rate means also prison for other people. So that means if there's a 35% homicide rate, that means there's a group of people that's going to prison for those homicides, right? And usually, you know, the statistics show us that we Black people usually kill Black people. Most we usually kill the people that surround us, right? And the reason for this is definitely no directional guidance and no emotional intelligence. Something is going on with the Asian population and with the white population that's not happening with the Black population. And by raw numbers, these are raw numbers, there were 19,350 gun homicides in 2020, with African Americans account for 62% of them, and white people account for only 20% of them. That means if you have 10 people, we account for 6 of the homicides that happened in 2020.
Damn.
And white people only account for 2. That's just if you play out the numbers over time, right? And the rate of U.S. gun deaths surged 35% in 2020 to the highest point since 1994. And 1994 is our highest, the decade of our highest homicide rate, right? Because again, something is going on, because in 1950 the homicide rate was 53%. 1960 it was 43%. Something happened between 1960 to 1970 that skyrocketed up 40 to 50%. And then it goes up another 80% right here. And now we've seen that 2020 brought the same homicide rate that is in the decade of that's in the decade of the highest percentage. So there are factors that is leading to this increased homicide rate. I'm gonna ask you if you want to add to it. I know
That's just wild, yo. That's just wild. That's all, I'm looking at the numbers and it's like
it's
my curiosity is peeking at me right now. It's like, okay, well, what happened in 1990 and what happened in 2020 that caused a rise that drastic in homicides?
Well, that's a whole different episode,
okay.
Right? But 1960, highlight 1960 because 1960 is the decade that Malcolm X died, Martin Luther King died, the Black Panthers was ended in the early 1970s. So it's a lot of some people, and then crack got introduced around this time too. Drug got introduced around this time. So definitely is an element of racism here because they killed off a lot of our leaders in the 60s and early 70s. And from there, you see that the rise, right? Because again, trends, something is happening, something is occurring in real life that is leading to these numbers. Next, right? So the relationship between alexithymia and lower social economic status in African Americans, right? We just, and I was practicing on how to pronounce this word, man. It was not working for me, man. But yeah. So here's the summary of it. Alexithymia is not a condition in its own right, but rather an inability to identify and describe emotions. People with alexithymia have difficulties recognizing and communicating their own emotions, and they also struggle to recognize and respond to the emotions in others. Alexithymia isn't well understood. There's a possibility it may be genetic. The conditions may also be a result of brain damage to the insula. This part of the brain is known for its role in social skills, empathy, and emotions. And possible trauma is also could be a cause of this. And additionally, this condition has been noted in people who have experienced trauma, especially during early childhood. Trauma and neglect at this stage may cause changes in the brain that can make it difficult to feel and identify emotions later in life. So this, and notice there's a correlation. This is an article. The article is up there. You can go Google it. It's a correlation between this. It's not a condition, but it's an inability. This inability to lower socioeconomic status in African Americans. So there's a correlation between poverty and the conditions of poverty to this inability to identify and describe emotions.
So we already know that growing up Black in America is traumatic enough. Right? We already know that growing up in the city with poverty is traumatic enough.
That's a fact.
We already know that literally grouping people together in a large population makes it so that you can't focus on individuals, right? Because now you focus on the group and what the group's going to do, right? So now people are facing neglect, right? People are facing trauma through being of their own condition. They can't even hide their skin color. They can't hide anything right They can't change that. I mean, well, they could through surgery, but you can't afford that. And you're fighting off of a burden of having no money, right? Or poverty of the mind as well. That's another trauma. And let's not even talk about if that's a trauma in itself, right? We're not even talking about all the things they go through on a daily basis that lead up, right? So it's like if I grab a water bottle and I grab a soda can and I shake both of them up, this person's emotionally intelligent, this one's not, right? So we're talking about education as well. Lack of education, you can't understand that, hey, I can process this properly, and when I open this bottle over here, the water's gonna be cool, calm, collected, because it understands how to deal with its emotions. This one over here, if I shake up the soda can, open it up, there's a huge explosion, right? So we're talking about a lack of people having to understand and identify their emotions as well. Trauma, I'm not sure if you know this, but trauma causes the brain. I know it says it may cause changes in the brain. It actually does cause changes in the brain. Any sense of trauma causes the brain to stop where it's at. You guys can research this. I don't have the information. It's not my slide.
No, you're right.
The trauma causes the brain, no matter what age you're at, it causes the brain to stop and stay at that age that it was at. So unless someone goes and actively goes and changes and alters and works on that brain, on their emotions and that healing journey, they're going to deal with things. They're going to express things. They're going to talk about things with the same mindset that they experienced that trauma in. So let's say someone was abused at 7 years old, or they were attacked at 7 years old, or they got into a car accident at 7 years old. Anything happened at 7 years old, their mind's dealing with things at that age for a very long period of time, if not forever, until they take on the responsibilities of working through that trauma and getting back to that healthy mindset.
Absolutely.
So this is not a lie. This is true. But for someone to not experience their emotions or their thought, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And there was an author that I actually quoted on this that said that trauma is not only the things that happen to you, but it's also the things that didn't happen to you, that should have happened to you. So young men are running around with the lack of emotional intelligence is really the core idea. All right. They don't have the social skills to maintain a relationship because, like Mark said, they react negatively to trivial things. Decision making, right? If you're very emotional, you won't be rational when you're making a decision. We see the incident with Takeoff, the rapper that got shot. We see the incident with the Meg and the Tory situation, right? The lack of emotional intelligence, empathy, the capacity to empathize and appreciate another perspective, right? The knowledge of one's own thoughts, feelings, and motivations, self-awareness, and also self-regulation, the ability to regulate emotions and actions in a variety of environment. That one right there is key because if you have high emotional intelligence, it's going to prevent you from bad situations and bad outcomes. Because there's going to be situations in your life where you need emotional intelligence to not make dumb decisions.
Let's give an example. Like a real life example that someone will go through on a daily basis in the hood.
Well, a real life example would be if somebody is talking about your mama and you have a gun on you, your reaction shouldn't be like, "Oh, let me shoot him,"
as it so often is. But yeah, it should not be.
Like Boston Richie said this in his song. Boston Richie said, "You know why people keep dying? It's because they keep dissing. But you shouldn't be killing somebody for a diss.
Not at all.
That's what's trivial. That's what Mark says is trivial. Like it sometimes a conversation might squash it. You know what I mean? But it's the quick decision to fight. Sometimes it might be little things of, oh, you talking to my boyfriend in high school, or you looking at me and you get into a fight. Enough of those fights could turn into gunplay. Right.
And that's the thing about statistics. The more you visit something, right? So the more that you see a pattern. So let's say the more that you do something, right? Let's say the more jobs I apply to, let me just put it like that. I say I'm looking for a job. The more jobs I apply to, the greater my chance of success is of getting a job, the more that I apply. So the more fights I get into, the greater chance of me getting shot. The greater chance of me shooting somebody.
That's a fact. And you walking with me, because that's exactly what it is. Because the more It's just that our kids get into more unnecessary confrontations, and then you throw guns in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you throw the lack of emotional intelligence, and then you
Mm-hmm.
get what Mark says, explosive. All right. So the demographic characteristics of homicide victims and offenders differ from the general population based on the data for the years 1976 to 2005. Blacks are disproportionately represented as both homicide victims and offenders. The victimization rates for blacks were 6 times higher than those for whites. Again, numbers 6 times higher. That means if whites are getting killed at once, we getting killed 6 times that, right? The offending rates for blacks were more than 7 times higher the rates for whites. Male represent 77% of the homicide victims and nearly 90% of the offenders. Males are more violent than females, right? The victimization rates for males were 3 times higher than the rates for females. The offending rates for males were 8 times higher than the rates for females. Approximately one-third of murder victims and almost half of the offenders are under the age of 25. For both victims and offenders, the rate per 100,000 peaks in the 18 to 24 range. So all of this is just numbers, right? We can't really go into a whole math lesson because statistics are actually a whole year, right?
Yeah, for
But
real.
the basic is 77%. Think about this as out of 100, 77 out of 100. 6 times is always 6 times the number. So if you got 10 people getting murdered, 6 people is getting murdered by blacks, right? Now, another issue. To save black boys, we must teach them how to read. Published February 7, 2019. Only 12% of black males are proficient in reading by 8th grade. If this was a case for white males, the media would categorize this as an epidemic and a national security risk. If a black male is not proficient in reading by the 4th grade, they only have a 20% chance of graduating from the high school on grade level. In 1920, 90% of the youth had their fathers in the home because while they were illiterate, they worked on farms. In 1960, 80% had their father at home while many were illiterate. They worked in factories. Today, the figure has dropped to a meager 28%. So this one basically saying that there's a correlation between fathers being in the home, right, and the literacy rate. And also that we have a low proficiency rate. Uh, the thing about reading is so important because if you if you don't know how to identify and understand words and sentences, you have a hard time accessing information.
That's facts. Like, how can you understand something? How can you learn something if you don't even know how to access it, or you can't because you don't have the abilities to access it, right? So, reading just allows you to open up your mind and take in more information. Fun fact: I worked in elementary school before, and
Mm.
between K through 4th grade, our reading goal for them was to let them recognize, understand, and decipher and use properly in every sentence over 1 million words. Because if they were able to do that, there was a higher chance, a higher probability of them actually graduating high school. So that was their main goal for reading. So to see
Mm.
this right here is beautiful. And I mean, not beautiful, it's sad, but to understand the correlation of how they're going about it is also interesting, you know?
Absolutely. Um, Black Boys in Crisis. Again, this one goes against on the reading level. Um, it's talking about how black boys have low reading levels. Uh, I'm just gonna read the last point. Reading is only one piece of the school puzzle, of course, but it's a fundamental one. If the 8th grader in our schools cannot read, how will they ever learn other subjects and make it to a college education or in reality to a high school diploma? And we know that those two correlate in money, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
education correlate in money. Your ability to read stymies you in job opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
right?
You could make, I don't remember the study, I gotta find the information for you. Maybe we can
Mhm.
add it for the next one. But like, if you only have a high school diploma, the most you're likely to make is 50K a year. Most, the highest, right? Um, but on average, people are making like 20 to 30K a year. And I was like, 20 to 30K a year. And if you don't have your high school diploma, you just have a GED or you don't have anything at all, the most you're likely to make is anywhere between 30K to 40K max. As soon as you get your bachelor's degree, the minimum you're looking for is 60K minimum. You can make
Crazy.
it anywhere between 60 to 100K with your bachelor's, right?
Yep.
And that's on average. We're not talking about your highest or your lowest. We're talking about on average. And
Mhm.
then when you get your master's, it goes up between 70K to 110K or 120K.
Yep.
And then when you get your doctorates, there's nothing stopping you. You know.
And the thing is, the more money you have, the higher the probability of obtaining more money, because then you have
Mhm.
more money to invest
Mhm.
and more money to deliberate to businesses and stuff like that. So
Which is the same thing
these
with education. The more you learn, the more you can have access to learn more information, and you can connect the
absolutely,
dots.
absolutely. Look at Kelly killing the game right now. So the reading level as of 2015, as you can see, the blue line is the amount of students that are below proficient, and we're double,
Damn.
double. So again, lack of emotional intelligence, lack of education equals a higher rate of bad decisions, right? Um, in terms of early reading, the 2103 National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that only 34% of fourth graders read proficiently. The figure is 14% for African American boys and 18% for Hispanics, while 42% of white boys score proficient. So again, you see the double right there in terms of the proficient percentage. Ooh, right? And then it says the African American Hispanic boys are twice as likely as white males to live in low income families. The
That's
rate
actually
of
almost triple. 14%.
Yep
Because
is actually
15 times 3 is 45, so that's almost triple the amount.
that's almost yep that's a fact. And it says the rate of African American babies born with low birth weights is nearly double that for white babies. Low birth weight is often associated with developmental delays, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
means if they're born with a low birth rate, weight is going to hinder them in their education.
Mm-hmm. So you gotta think
Um,
about it. What causes to have a low birth weight, right? There's lack of food, lack of nutrients, probably
Macronutrient.
stemming from lack of finances. So after now they're born, you gotta think about the resources that are provided to them. If I already struggled to feed you while you were in my stomach, how am I
Mhm.
gonna struggle to educate you? I'm still focused on feeding you when you get out,
That's a fact.
right? Versus like if a child's well fed and well taken care of, when you get out, I'm gonna focus on continue to do that and provide you more resources.
That's a fact. African American boys and girls are 2 to 3 times more likely to be chronically absent in the early grades, which can erode early literacy gains. Studies show. Okay, like coming to school every day is definitely like important
Mm-hmm.
because it's consistency. It's like a muscle. The brain. They always say your brain is a muscle. You got to keep working at it. And if you're missing days, it disrupts the learning. You might come back, you don't know where it's at. We're teachers, so we know the 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 effects of not being in school on time. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead.
I even tried to get my daughter signed up for a program, a little, and it was a Montessori program, and I was like, you know what? I only need this for like 3 days out the week, and she was like, oh, we don't accept that. I said, why not?
Mm,
And she's like, well, we have a program, so it's 5 days out the week, right? And it has to be consistent. We were already missing a whole bunch of time with them on the weekends, and
mhm.
that's already causing them to like regress in the information we provided with them. And so, in order for them to continue growing, we need to make sure that they stay consistent. If I only get them for 3 days out the week, that's going to hinder their growth. and the other students are going to notice it, and that's going to hinder their growth because they're having a disruption in their consistency. Even though that person's not showing up, to them that's a disruption because it's a lack of something they're supposed to have there.
That's a
So
fact.
it makes a huge difference.
And this goes into practice, and this goes into consistency. Like this is the thing. Consistency is just the key for life. Period. Right. And it starts with decision making, because for an African American kid to be absent chronically, like it just, there's a lack of consistency where in the home.
At home, yeah.
At home, right? So again, reading is important because it allows you to access information so that you can make key decisions. All right. So the main idea here, the lack of love creates hate. Trauma is the absence of love. And I mean, that's self-explanatory. You got anything to say about that?
What you mean is self-explanatory? So like the lack of love creates hate. How?
Mhm. Well, a lot of actions, whether it be murder, stealing, whether it be something going awry in terms of a child dying, that could create hate into somebody else. Right? You steal something from me. I'm not gonna like you because you steal something from me. I'm gonna hate you. I'm not gonna like you if you just killed my brother, or you just, you know what I mean, you offended me. So, and usually the action that create the reaction of hate is due to a lack of love.
Mm.
Because
So
love wouldn't make you steal.
you're
Love
saying the
wouldn't.
perpetrator creates an action, and the person receiving that on the receiving end of that action now has disdain or hate for that person, right? Because there was no love in
Absolutely.
that action. But also
Based off the action.
the reason why the perpetrator did that to begin with is because they did not have that love to begin with, and which is why they caused it. So this is all like that cycle of the abuse becomes the abuser. It's the cycle repeating itself. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And trauma is the absence of love. Like we said, love is not trauma is not about also, it's not about what happened to you, but it's also about what should have happened to you and didn't happen.
Like if you were neglected, that's trauma, right? You
That's
didn't get
trauma.
the proper food, the proper hugs and kisses, or the proper nourishment, or the proper wisdom or
Mhm.
guidance, whatever the case may be.
That's trauma. Absolutely. Absolutely. The desirable parent role. The desirable parent role. Showing support for a child's education. According to a research study by Ronald Ferguson, nearly half of a child's achievement in school can be accounted for by factors outside the school, including parental support. Consequently, the most important support any child can receive comes from the parent. This support ranges from being responsible for making sure that the child arrives at school well rested, well fed, and ready to learn, to setting high expectations for their child. The following are suggestions of how a parent can support their child's education. Attendance. Good school attendance is important to academic achievement. When students are absent from school, they miss vital instructions. Parents have control over their child's attendance, and and this includes arriving on time to school and not taking students out in the middle of the school day. Attitude. Parents need to display a positive attitude towards school in general. If parents have a positive attitude, the child will also have that positive attitude towards school. Parents must be careful in how they address school concerns in front of their child. If they display a negative attitude towards school, their child may adopt that as his/her own attitude towards school. Parties. Education must be given a top priority for it to come out on top. Therefore, parents must make education their first priority, right? Um, this is also self-explanatory. Like I remember James Baldwin said that children, they don't they might not listen to you, but they watch what you do. Um, so if you're not emphasizing school to your kids, they're not going to think that it's important. And education is what it's is essential to outcomes.
Well,
Knowledge is what is essential to outcomes.
I always tell my students, and I tell my daughter when she gets of age, she's too young to understand right now, the same thing. I don't care what your grades are in school. I don't care how things are going in school. But if you want to be successful in life, education is the way out, and school provides you education. So if you want to be successful in life, and you want to make sure that you have the best opportunities in life, the best successes in life, the best relationships, the best anything, then you need to make sure you have the best education. So if you're in school and you're fooling around, you're not doing anything, you're not utilizing your opportunities, that's on you. And it's gonna show actual physical life results later on because you decided not to pay attention right now. So I may not deem school important in terms of grades and all that because I still feel like you could be successful without those things. However, education is essential. So whether you allow school to teach you, or you allow yourself at home to teach you, or you allow yourself to go to a program that's not in school or not, controlled at home that teaches you certain things and certain fundamentals. Either way, you still need to learn. How is it going to be? Are you going to go to school? You're going to learn the best way you can? Because I put it like this: summer school. I only had to do it one time. Right, I was coming from Puerto Rico. I didn't speak any English. I had to learn English, and I was going to the first grade. I went from first grade to second grade because I was able to do summer school. After that, I never did summer school again. But it kind of felt like I did. Right. Yeah. Again, I was in foster care. Right, and my mom, she'd always find a reason to put me in trouble. 2 weeks before school started. And those first 2 weeks before school started, I had already done my summer reading way before summer began. So I always got in trouble for something that was not really my actual reason to get in trouble. Oh, you came home late 2 minutes? That's it. You're grounded for the next 2 weeks. What?
Crazy.
2 minutes, right? And I'd have to read as many books as I can within those 2 weeks and write reports on every single one of those books. I hated it. Absolutely disdained it. I'm like, why I can't play with the rest of my friends? I just want to do what they're doing. Nah. Because in the big picture, my mom knew that me reading and me writing was going to prepare me to go back to school, right? It was going to give me the fundamentals, the habits to make sure I was focused in school because I'm already doing it at home. And then on top of that, when I get older, I'm going to be able to recite information on books and information on books and articles on things that I actually didn't learn in school. Right, so now I have more access to information. I have more access to certain things. I have more to discuss and more to share, right? Meaning I can have more people to talk to that might have had those same experiences or have different experiences, but they have different thoughts, and we can now contemplate our ideas. So I hated it, but I benefited from it. Years later, what do I love to do? Read and write.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? So I may not have appreciated it at the time, but my parent, knowing what was best for me, put me in a position to have access to that opportunity. And now I'm able to reap the benefit of that reward.
Got you. That's a fact.
So
is this PowerPoint not getting juicy right now?
It's like a sirloin steak, you know what I'm saying?
All right, come on.
Get the mashed potatoes and gravy out. We're still here.
Right now. Come on. So the main idea, the parent's job is to raise and provide a safe and nurturing environment for the child. Environment is very key, right? Like that is the responsibility of a parent, right? Because again, this helps you build generational wealth. If you don't raise children disciplined enough to manage wealth, it could end with your children's generation. Forget you, it could end with your children. So not only do you have to build up wealth, but you also have to be able to prepare your children to make sure that they're able to manage that wealth.
That's a fact.
So this is very important. Now, Confucius said this, and I want your take on this. By three methods, we may learn wisdom. So there's 3 ways we can learn wisdom. You know, they always got to speak differently back then than they, you know what I mean? First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Reflection is thinking about your experiences, thinking about what you have. And your experiences is not only what you have done or what you have may experience, but somebody else's experiences and you watching them, right? So reflecting on that. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. Imitation means, well, acting it out. You could act it out in your mind. You could act it out with the numbers, right? But imitation is basically saying, well, let me play this scenario out in my mind based off the information that I gathered,
Right.
and I'm imitating it instead of actually doing it. It's like shooting a bow and arrow. Like, I don't need to actually shoot a bow and arrow to actually know what it could do when I shoot it.
Right.
I can imitate it, right? And then he said the last one, and the third by experience, which is the bitterest. And the bitterest meaning that, yeah, experience is the best teacher. It's the best teacher because you're going to feel it. It's the best teacher because it's the one that you're going to experience the most. I'm using the word twice, but it's something that you like. You could watch somebody touch the fire. You could think
I would love to go.
about how somebody could touch the fire, but you could actually touch the fire. You get what I'm saying? So that's what he's basically saying. What's your thoughts on that?
I was about to give that same example, and now you gotta stick me on my loop, right? So, so by 3 methods by which we learn wisdom, right? Experience is definitely the bitterest because you have to go about it the hard way. You have to actually go through it. And I think they should have switched this, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
Experience was definitely like number one. I may not be the best one to do, but it's definitely the number one that people actually like perform. So you go through life, and if you don't watch anyone else, you're gonna do it yourself, right? Let's say there's 3 children. Boom. Let's say there's 3 children. The first one born, he's gonna do everything. He's gonna experience everything. It's gonna be the hardest for him. The second one's gonna watch the first one and imitate what the first one's doing, and so therefore he's gonna learn what not to do and what to do because he already sees the first one getting burnt. I'm not gonna touch that fire. I seen you do it. I'm gonna get close to it, but I just saw you get burnt. You know what? I don't have to touch it right now. And that's the easiest one, right? But the last child's born, he didn't get to see the other 2, do everything. But he sees how they behave, and he's like, you know what? I believe that my eldest brother touched the fire, and my second one watched him do it and never did it. So I'm not going to do it either, because I could just see that it's going to be painful. Because my first brother, he has a scar. You know what I'm saying? He has a scar in his hand. He said that he got it when he was young. It looks like a fire scar. You know what I'm saying? So he's reflecting on these things. So that's how I see it, right? 3 kids, and they're doing certain things, right? The first one's experiencing, the second one's imitating the first one, but he knows, hey, once he gets hurt, I'm not gonna keep imitating. And then the last one, he didn't see everything, but he's reflecting based off the stories that he heard from his older brothers.
Yo, I like that you said that because that goes right into my next slide, Brody. All right, I like this. So here's the solution. We said the solution is marriage. Here's the marriage statistics, right? Black marital status. This is blackdemographic.com. They got it from the U.S. Census Bureau, which they do a census every 5 years. Right. And as we can see, based off Black demographics, we see Black people in total, combined Black men and Black women, we're at 30%. Our divorce rate is 12%, and our never married rate is 50%. But then when we go into the numbers in terms of Black men, Black women, we see that Black men get married more than Black women, right? And we're gonna talk about like why is it that Black men have a higher rate than Black women. However, the never married rate is actually higher with men than women, but that's because the divorce rate is higher, 13 versus 10%, right? And the statistics show women divorce at a higher rate than men anyway, right? So that's not even really a surprise. But then if we go here to statistics by other race, we see that Hispanics at 43%.
This is just for men.
This is just for the whole race.
Nah, on the right hand side, this is for men, because it's the exact same numbers that we have on the left.
The black right here, black men is 33.
Oh, this is the whole race of black
This is
people.
the
Also.
whole race. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is the whole race. So the Hispanic is 43, the white is 52, and then the Asian is 58. Right. So they have a higher marriage rate than us. Now think about it like this:
And they got a lower divorce.
out of 10 people, only 3 of them get married. Basically,
Yeah.
right? That's 30%. Out of 10 people, 3 of them get married. Right. Now, black marriages in 2021, right? This goes into why black men have a slightly higher marriage rate than black women. Is because there are 556,000 more married black men than married black women, and also because we marry out more, as you can see here. We marry out at a 15. I said 15, yeah, 15%. Yep, 15%. So 15% of black men marriages are with outside ethnicities, right? While it's more of 6-7% for black women, right? And well, something happened, right? Something had to happen, right? So this is again from the same website, the United States Census Bureau, and what it shows is from 1990 we had a pretty high marriage rate, right? The never married rate was 5% uh, for black women, was hovering over 5%.
So it's going over the same exact numbers you were talking about earlier in
Uh-huh.
1960.
And then we get to 1960, 1970, and when we talk about the civil rights movement ending
The
and all
crack
that,
of
and then we see
civilization.
the number just completely separate. And that's for both black men and black women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see the numbers actually look, the numbers actually go up a little bit in 1940. What happened in 1940? Well, World War II. That's what made it go up. This is the never married. So never married, those that never married, right? Now it's over 25% never married, right? The trend is going up, but this is not a good trend. This is a bad trend. And then again, for black men, it's also going up, right?
For white men specifically.
And then for white men, it's about the same, right? It's between 5 and 15%. Ours just went through the roof.
Nah. Oh, I'm reading that color wrong. Wow.
Yeah, right. When you're looking at the chart, you gotta look at the color scheme, and
Yeah.
then you gotta look at the years, and then you gotta look at the percentages, right? This is never married. We're low, right? We're hovering over 5%. We're just hovering between 6 and 7% for a while until we reached 1970. Then the never married rate went up. Those are the people that never got married. So before everybody was getting married, right? If it's 5%, 5, 6, 7%, that means 93 to that means over 90% of black people were getting married.
9 out of 10 people are getting married.
9 out of 10 people were getting married. For some apparent reason, it just went up after 1960. That something happened, right?
A
Martin
lot
Luther
of things
King
happen.
died, Malcolm X, you know what I
Black.
mean? Unemployment, war on drugs, right? And boom, here we got it. War on drugs and its effect on black marriages.
Right there, 1971.
Right there, 1971, right? So we see the red is the marriages and the black is the prisons. So as the black is going up, the red is going up. And as again, you can see the timeline. These are the dates at the bottom. Civil rights movement right here. War on drugs right after the civil rights movement. And we see the population going up. Right? Because of this war on drugs. What you think about this so far, man?
I mean, you can. I mean, I'm just. All right, so put a perspective. I've always discussed with old heads. You know how we do in the community
That's a fact.
about what
Yeah.
happens and stuff like that, and how things affected the black community. Um, You know, we always talked about the lack of men in the black community because of drugs or because of prison has always affected the rest of us and how we behave and how we feel and how we go about things. That's why there's a rise in emotions, there's a rise in killings because people are going off of emotions. But to see the statistical facts behind backing up those theories and backing up those conversations right here and evidently clear in front of your eyes is completely different. You can't dismiss the notion that's no longer theory, it's actual fact.
It's actual fact, right? You can't dismiss it. It becomes you can never let this leave your mind because it's like,
Right.
oh, there's a correlation. Something's going on. So the reason why we separated wasn't because of differences. It's because of men going to prison, low socioeconomic status, right? Because before, it's not about poverty because we always been poor, right? We always been poor. Something happened, particularly right here, that led to boom, it going right up. The same thing again. It goes right back up, right? And it says during the second half of the 20th century, black and white marriages patterns began to dramatically diverge, specifically compared to their white counterparts. Black adults are less likely to marry at later ages, and are more likely to divorce. So not only are we less likely to get married, but we're more likely to leave that marriage.
Damn.
So additionally, marriage has become increasingly selective of college educated individuals. Change the trend through behavior. The only way to change this trend is through behavior, right? Because again, it's trending upwards.
And how you change behavior? Feedback.
Feedback. Yep, feedback right there, right? So, and increasingly selective because, college education, you want somebody else that's college educated, right?
Right.
Cause and effect. Again, everything has a cause and effect in life, man. Like I think we forget that. Like every decision you make has a cause and effect from as you can see, like the low birth rate could mean that she didn't have she had a very stressful pregnancy. Her 9 months, you know what I mean, could equal that. Drugs could equal that. Poverty could equal a low birth weight. You know what I mean? And then that could affect your birth, which affects your developmental, which then goes and affects your decisions at 20, 25.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might affect your decisions till 40 and you die early.
What people don't realize is the image you got right here. I don't know how it looks on your screen, so I'm just gonna point on both sides.
Uh-huh.
But there's that guy pushing the domino,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's one small domino. All it takes is one small domino about this size, right? And you see the videos all over the world. It's so cool and fascinating, right? There's a small domino. Someone pushes that domino, boop, and that little small domino hits a bigger domino. And that little small bigger domino hits a smaller but bigger domino. And then it gets to a point where there's a medium-sized domino, right? And the medium-sized domino, what's happening is they're passing on that initial force, but every time they've hit that initial force, it's magnified and it's increased and it's intensified, right? There's a larger pressure being added. It's the same thing like when we put our foot on the gas in a car, we put a slight amount of pressure on there, but there's a pressure sensor inside of there that operates with a certain type of mechanics, and it adds air, right? It's a pressurized air system, and it pushes on a certain mechanism inside the car, making the tires move, right? And the more pressure we put on the gas, the higher the pressure intensifies within that chamber that makes the car roll faster. And so, even though we're only applying a small amount of pressure, one thing can lead to a large impact in the long term, right? So if I neglect to do this to my child at this age, or I do something to my child at this age, right? Let's say I yell at them every single time that they come to me with bad news about school. Do you think that when they turn 18, they're gonna want to tell me about all the bad things that happened to them in life? No. But if every time they come to me and something bad happened at school, I say, hey, babe, I understand that it hurt you, that it affected you this way, and I'm very understanding, I'm very calming, I'm very empathetic, and I give them some advice. I ask them, it's okay, can I give you some advice? They say, yeah, I want some advice, Pop. I talk to them and give them the advice they need. They go back to school feeling empowered. You think at 18, when they come to me with you think they're gonna want to come to me with a problem? want to come to me for a problem. They be like, hey, I got a problem at school. They're 18. I got a problem at
Because
school.
you built that relationship early.
With the small time, the small problems, the minuscule things. Same thing when you go to your friend, right? If I go to the bank, you do this with your credit card system all the time. Go to the bank, you get a small limit or a credit loan. How much is it? Like what, 500, maybe 250 started off. Over time, you say, over the last 6 months, I've been paying it consistently. I make more money at my job now. My limit is 100% not used. My utilization is 100% not used. I've paid it off every month. Let me get a greater credit limit. Now they give you to 750 or 1,000. Keep going. 2 years later, now you got 3,000. Keep going. 5 years later, now you got a $10,000 limit on 3 different cards from 3 different companies, and you're like, and everyone's like, wait, how'd you get so much? Over time, with small actions, I built up the trust, and so they gave me more. Your small action today will affect you in the future in a greater impact than you will ever know.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Nas said this. I said this in this PowerPoint, that trust is the contract that constantly has to be renewed. So it says statistics by race, ethnicity, and family nativity. The likelihood of a child living in a single parent family varies by race, ethnicity, and family nativity. Data from 2019 indicates that Black and American Indian kids are most likely to live in a single parent family. In the single parent families, 64% of Black children and 52% of Native American children. While whites, single parent rates are 24%, and Asian and Pacific Islanders are 15%. Gaber Mate said trauma is a psych wound that hardens your psychological, that then interferes with your ability to grow and develop. It pains you, and now you're acting out of pain. It induced fear, and now you're acting out of fear. Trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. So I wanted to read that.
Don't change the screen.
Take a picture of that.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we fix that trauma? Right. We got some time left. We could probably go an extra 30 minutes on this. I think 30 minutes should be suffice to finish the rest, right?
All right.
The role of fathers. The absence of the father is the single most important cause of crime. In fact, boys who are fatherless from birth are 3 times as likely to go to jail as peers from intact families, while boys whose fathers do not leave until they are 10 to 14 years old are 2 times as likely to go to jail as their peers from intact families. So I like this statistic because, not because of the numbers. I hate the numbers, but it shows that having a father to a certain point means something.
Not even
because the numbers go from 3 times to 2 times.
Not even to a certain point. Having a father.
Period.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, period.
And losing your father at a certain point can still damage you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it lessens the more years he's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what basically the data is showing me, right?
Mm-hmm. That the role of the presence of a father eliminates or disrupts the idea of certain behaviors. Right? Certain behaviors that aren't helping the child, that aren't helping that person individually.
And it goes back to the domino, because like it doesn't automatically mean just because you don't have a father you're gonna go to jail.
Right.
It just means that if you hit the right dominoes enough, you could go there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big domino that's gonna fall. And who's the most in jail? Black people, as we saw in the previous slides, right? And it says, according to Robert Rector of the Heritage Foundation, children without a father are more than twice as likely to be arrested for a juvenile crime and 3 times more likely to go to jail by the time they reach age 30 than are children raised in intact families. Adolescents who had a positive relationship with their fathers are less likely to be arrested belong to a gang, damage property, steal, or run away compared to their peers with less positive relationships with their fathers. This goes back to what Mark was saying, that the community suffers.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is really a community thing, man. Like, it's really about what do we want as a community, right? Because then all of this hinders our economic wealth, which then hinders our ability to enjoy the earth, right? Along with the increased probability of family poverty, because two incomes is better than one, heightened risk of delinquency, a father's absence is associated with a host of other social problems. The three most prominent effects are lower intellectual development, higher levels of illegitimate parenting in the teenage years, and higher levels of welfare dependency. According to a 1990 report from the Department of Justice, more often than not, missing and throwaway children came from single-parent families, families with step-parents, and cohabitating adult families. So it's not enough to have a step-parent, and it's not enough to have a cohabitating adult family.
Right.
Um,
Hi, mama.
it says the effects of parenting or parental fighting. Oh, your daughter's there? That's what's up.
Yeah. She just got home from school. Grandma picked her up.
What's up?
You want to say hi? You want to say hi? I'm taking off my shirt. Hold on.
You good?
Come say hi.
What's
Hi.
up?
Okay. Want to go say hi to Nana? Nana's going to have some snacks for you. Give this to Nana.
I keep saying your daughter's adorable, Brody.
I appreciate you. I gotta give it all the props to her mom, you know?
That's a fact. That's a fact. The effects of parental fighting. The empirical evidence shows that for a growing child, the happiest, safest, and most tranquil family situation is the intact primary marriage. But even within intact two-parent families, serious parental conflict has bad effects. The famous studies of Harvard professor Sheldon and Allure in the 1950s found that one-third of delinquent boys in their sample came from homes with spouse abuse. So I'm saying there's a lack, of course, family structure, right?
Right. Even if the person is at home, like the father is at home.
Yeah, the lesson is clear. Conflict between parents hurts the child, right? You can read this slide and see exactly what we're saying, right? A structured home is important, right? Yeah, let me know too if you gotta step away too.
Now, do you say, man?
All right, cool. 4, effects of parental breakup, right? This right here is about divorce and how divorce could have an impact on the child, right? And how the emotional intelligence impact of the divorce could lead to children making irrational decisions, right? Um, and this one says influence of criminal parents. So the effects of parents being criminal. Again, going to jail is a trauma itself.
Right.
So you could had a kid went to jail and then come back, and because your trauma from jail stopped your growth and development, it impacts how you raise a child, right?
Go back 2 slides.
Yeah. Pew Research Center, right? It says here, among young and middle-aged men, the likelihood of having a child out of wedlock varies by cohort. Among biological fathers ages 20 to 24, more than 3/4, 76%, have had a child out of wedlock. That's just basically the age range, 20 and 24. That's when that's when you fast, you're not thinking. You know what I mean? So you having a child before marriage right there. That's because out of wedlock means you having it before marriage, while this share drops to 36% for fathers ages 35 to 44, right? Getting a little bit more responsible, 35 to 44, you're a little bit more responsible as a man, right? 20 to 30, you kind of you playing a little bit, right? And you get older, you stop playing. That varies from men to men, but I can see why it's 76%, 20 to 24, rather than 36%, 35 to 44, right?
For real.
And then it says there are notable differences by race and ethnicity as well. Some 37% of white biological dads have had at least one child out of wedlock, while 77% have had a birth within a marriage. So we see there's a common something's going on here, right? 37% is having a child out of wedlock, 77% is having it in marriage. Black and Hispanic.
What age range is the second one?
They didn't give an age range. I didn't give an age range for this one. The age range at the top is for general.
Okay.
And this one right here is going more specific in terms of the wedlock, right?
Copy.
So it says among black men, 72% have had a child out of wedlock, and 48 have had one in a marriage. So again, that's not double, but it's definitely twice as more as white people, right? And the Hispanics have 59% out of wedlock, while they have a 58% in marriage. So the other races are having babies in a marriage, and we see the effects of that, right? Here it is. It says incarceration, unemployment, and black white marriage age gap just marriage gap in the United States. And it says in 2006, 67% of white women in the U.S. between the ages of 25 and 54 were married, compared with only 34%, right? This is 2006. Remember, 2006, now it's at 27% for black women. Back in 2006, it was 34%. So the trend is going down in terms of the numbers, right? And this author says that this column examines the link between this and decline in low-skilled jobs in the areas of mass incarceration that has disproportionately affected black communities. It finds the difference in incarceration, employment dynamics between black and whites account for that money, right? A single parent is a person who has a child or children but does not have a spouse or a living partner to assist in the upbringing of the support of that child. And we see here, look at these numbers. From 1960 to 2011, the never married rate was 4%. Now it's 44%. So it's 10 times the numbers now. Right? So something's going on. There's a trend, right?
Go back. Everything increased.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. You got to also see, most of that's probably from widowed people, right?
Well,
82%.
The 82%? No, it's divorced, separate, and widow.
And what I'm thinking as I'm hypothesizing is most of that came or derived from widowed.
Well, I wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. But I get what you're saying. Like we would think that our I could see that.
I would hope so.
I
would hope so.
The statistics will say that because America, I think America just within the last 50 years allowed women to divorce their man. And women just recently started having the ability to earn more income.
Mm.
So, that would lead to more divorce rates. So I would assume that it's either 82% is more widow than divorce.
Okay.
Based off the date. Because again, it's based off the time frame. These numbers are based off the society that they had back then.
Exactly.
Right? So when it comes to child well-being, is one parent the same as two? This is an article. In a recent Psychology Today article, one parent can do just as good as two. Woman says Bella DePaulo shared findings from Family Stories Nation survey of about 1,000 women, right? And uh, the report is the online survey found that more than 70% of the participants believe that a single parent can do just as good as a two parents. This includes 70% of married women with and without kids, as well as 78% of unmarried moms. Additionally, more than 60% of women agreed that children do best with multiple adults invested in helping, but that two parents are not necessary. So basically, she did a survey, and um, there are people that think that two parents aren't necessary. Hopefully, this PowerPoint shows you that two parents are necessary.
Hopefully, it's definitely necessary.
Right.
Not even just two parents, the primary two parents from the beginning.
The primary two parents from the
You
beginning.
don't have kids unless you're being intentional about being there long term with the partner you had the kid with.
Absolutely. Like, and marriage helps you understand better if that person is better for you or not, because it's a financial, it's not only a commitment to the person, but it's also a financial commitment. It's your pockets, it's your livelihood.
Mm-hmm. And to those of you that are 24 to 20 to 24, right? When y'all, what was it, 78% or 72% that were having kids out of wedlock? Hey, like my grandmother told me, wear your raincoat. Wear your raincoat, man. Let those numbers go down.
But see, information will tell you, yo, wear your raincoat, because that kid is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And you not raising that kid not only affects you, but it also affects the community.
Mm-hmm. It affects everyone. It's not just that kid. It's not just the person that you had the kid with. It's not just you. Not just the family members attached to it. It's whatever school they go to. They're going to be disruptive in that classroom to that teacher. Whatever community they hang out in, they might add to it, add the shenanigans, or subtract from it. And you never know. Some of my mentor told me, right? You know what a grain of corn is?
Yeah.
When you get a corn on the cob, right? You have the whole cob, that little small yellow part,
Okay.
one piece. That's the seed. And you plant that. You don't know how much corn you're gonna grow from that. You can grow one stalk, which is like one corn, right? Or you can grow like 10 stalks from that one seed. And then when that stalk or those stalks plant themselves, their own seeds, you don't know how much that's gonna affect like the environment around it. You don't know if it's gonna be 20,000 stalks, or it's gonna be like a whole forest of stalks, or it's just gonna be one more, right? You don't know. It's never gonna be just one stalk. One seed grows one stalk. So one action does not lead to one bigger action. It leads to an entire exponential amount, not multiplied amount. It's an exponential figure of what you do, right? So if I do one thing here with this child, I create this child in this world. This child is exponentially shifting the entire world.
Crazy.
What am I doing with that child?
Yeah, and basically what you're saying is you could put one child in a neighborhood and 20 people could die.
Exactly. If they're not cared for properly.
If it's not cared for properly. And it's not even, and it's the causation aspect of it, right? You could put one child in the world and you got Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I definitely get what you're saying, right? And the person that's writing this article, Alyssa, said that these findings should be disturbing to us, especially since it's women and children who suffer the most from the absence of marriage, right? And it says, nevertheless, message like one parent is just as good as two, or married parents aren't necessary, are misleading and harmful. Not only does this view of family discount the experiences of men and women like me who grew up in loving but broken unmarried families, it also ignores the social science evidence on the best family structures for a child well-being. Right? And then it says less poverty, less prison, more colleges, what two parents means for black and white children. So the rest of the PowerPoint is just to describe what does it mean for a two parent for black children, right? So figure 1 indicates that black children in homes headed by single parents are 3.5 times more likely to be living in poverty compared to the black children living with two parents in a first marriage. Exactly what you said before about the primary marriage. You pointed that out. I kind of walked past it. You actually pointed out, right? Our measures of intact families in the ACS, those in likely step families are approximately 2.5 times more likely to be poor. Moreover, after controlling for maternal education, age, children's age, and gender, we find that the odds of being poor for Black children in non-intact families are 3.7 times higher than for Black children in intact families, married families. Clearly, Black children in stable married families are better off financially, right? Because again, you have two people that could invest not only money, but time. Time to sit down and read a book with them at night. Time to do bedtime stories. Time to go to the park. Time to take them places. Advice to give them. Love to give them. Right? It's better if two people are there than one person is there.
She liked that one.
She liked that one. That's what she
Advice
said.
to give them. But yeah, that's so real though.
And we have the figures right here. Right here, 13% living with two parents in first marriage. Right? This is the child poverty. They're 13% likely to be in poverty, while 33% with a step parent, and with a single parent, it jumps all the way to 56%. Right? And that's just for any race. It's just bad to have. And going through what we go through as being Black and Hispanic, we need two parents more than another group needs two parents. Every group needs two parents, but we need it more because of our situation, right? And college, to even graduate college, growing up with two biologics just gives you a better opportunity to succeed in college and to get to college. Jail, look at this. Growing up with two parents, you're 8%. Growing up with one parent, you're 14%. So it just shows in the number. Like we could say it, but the number shows it. Right? And these are just the trends right here, right? Here's more trends, right? Young Black men growing up with two parents, 21%. 12% if they have a single parent. It's not saying that single parents, it's done for the kid. It just gives them the less probability of success.
Right.
You could be a single mom and your kid could still make it, but you're making it harder for your kid to make it. You could be a single dad, which single dads are actually they're actually higher statistically in success than single moms, but you could be a single dad and it gives you less opportunity for your child to make it. Right? Two parents, as this is saying, is the best opportunity.
It looks like this is the only trend I see the first time that a step parent actually beats the two parents in the household.
Where you see that
Black woman being incarcerated.
The Black men? Yep. It actually no.
Black woman.
Yep. The statistics show that for a woman, it's less because men are more aggressive. When men are emotional, they usually are very, very violent.
Right.
More than women are. So they're going to be more. Our numbers are always going to be a little bit higher than women. And this kind of also tells me a message too, that just because you have another parent, especially because of most of our community is single mothers, so that means you bring a dad in, like it's very difficult to build a relationship with a stepdad, especially if you've been with your mom for a long period of time, because it's another man that's coming into the fold. Right? So it's very difficult to at times. Sometimes you rebel because you bring in the stepdad. So I could understand why that data is up there. You know what I mean? Or you bring it, or the girl could bring in a ain't ish dude. You know what I mean? You never know, right? Racial and ethnic disparities in breastfeeding initiative, right? It says the prevalence of breastfeeding initiative was 84% overall and varied by maternal race slash ethnicity, ranging from 90% among infants of Asian mothers to 73% among infants of black mothers, a difference of 16.7 percentage points. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die as a result of pregnancy compared to white women. Their babies suffer an infant mortality rate that more than double that of white children, often due to low birth rate, premature birth, and complication after birth. Black babies are more likely to be born prematurely than white babies. In 2017, 14% of black women gave birth prematurely, signifies more than 9% of white women, according to CDC data. Now, breast milk is important because it helps with development of the child.
It helps in every way, mentally, emotionally. There's a
Talk about it.
actual emotional bond being created,
Uh-huh.
and physically, right? You give a baby breast milk over what's it called, formula, right? They're gonna have all the natural things that they need for their body. Did you know that when a baby's sick, right, that the mother will naturally produce the exact remedy in her breast milk that will help combat the sickness for the child?
Crazy. Did not know that.
And if you have two children, right, whichever one they're breastfeeding on, whichever breast they're breastfeeding on, that breast will deliver it specifically to that child.
Crazy.
So yeah, breast milk is that much more important and prevalent for the development is prevalent for the development of that child.
And the reason why we're bringing this up is because we have the we have low birth weight, we have premature birth. Our children are more likely to die than white folks' children. And what does that mean is that because we have a single mother rate, right? That's less time for the mother to be breastfeeding because she's trying to survive with this child,
Mm.
right? And then there could be complications on the mother too that we don't know. There, there are unknown conditions that prevent women from breastfeeding, right?
Facts.
So, so, but all of this could be remedied if we have a man that helps the woman through that situation, right? It gives her more time to breastfeed. It gives her alleviation. So, because I know breastfeeding, it's very, very painful sometimes.
Give her food.
Give her food,
Give her the
nutrients, more
nutrients.
money to
When,
give to bring
when when she's
nutrients to the
breastfeeding,
mother.
you know what I'm saying? When a woman's breastfeeding, she's being drained of her nutrients, and that's being put into the child, right?
Absolutely,
Back before modern medication, the likelihood of a woman dying during pregnancy was up there. It
hmm
was much higher than her surviving. And so,
absolutely.
in order for her to be preserved, right, you have to make sure that she's fed during her labor. I mean,
hmm
during her time carrying the baby, so during her pregnancy gestation process. Then you have to make sure that she's taken care of during her labor, right? Because during
Absolutely.
labor, she's giving so much energy to give out this baby, and then after the birth, you gotta still make sure that she's still eating enough food for the breast, so she can breastfeed, right? So
Crazy.
you're being drained during the gestation process, during the labor process, and during the breastfeeding process. You need to make sure that this woman's taken care of. If you're not helping her, rubbing her back, make sure she's good, providing that emotional support, like, hey, we're gonna go through this. I'm here for you, right?
Absolutely.
Letting her know that she's taken care of, right? There's that's gonna affect her, and in affecting her, that's gonna affect the child.
Affect the
Well,
child.
it may not be conscious, but it's gonna be subconscious. It's gonna
hmm
be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I get lost when you're talking because you're speaking facts, man. Like this, and this is just dominoes right here. These are the dominoes right here. That
Mm-hmm.
first domino that lead to now the child shooting up the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Or robbing or not doing well in school, and now he can't get a job, and now he's depressed, and now he's stuck in the hood. Right? There's so many factors. It could lead to jail. It could lead to death. It could lead to struggling. You know what I mean? So it's very important that we have two parents so that we could alleviate these situations, because all this is so that we could give the child the best opportunity to survive.
Facts.
Going back to what we said before, the role is to, make sure that they're able to attack the world, right? Children who grow up in a household with only one biological parent are worse off on average than children who grew up in a household with both of their biological parents, regardless of the parent's race or educational background. That is from Sarah right here and Gary. And it said, and I said, good families equal good communities. Bad families equal bad communities. A bunch of bad families linked together is going to increase the probability of it being a bad community, right? That's just what it is. And parents should be concerned about the environment a child is raised in and consider the circumstances, because
That's a domino effect right there, though. So
absolutely.
right here, good families equal good communities, right? So
Mm-hmm.
basically, be a good father and be a good husband. That'll lead
Mm-hmm.
to having a good child, right? Which will have a good family, which will have a good community. So it starts with you being good for yourself and then being present for yourself, and then being good for your child and your wife. I'm sorry, being good for your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then being good for them, right? And then you guys being good together with your child, right? And then having a good household, and you doing that, extending that to your extended family, you having a good family, and your family meeting with the community and having a good community. Like it starts off just like that. That's the domino effect.
That's an absolute fact. And that domino effect goes in and affects everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I've seen 15-year-olds that come from good families get shot because of a 15-year-old that came from a bad family. And that's what we got to understand about the consequences of our behavior. Yeah, you could have a kid with this person, but having a kid with this person can equal you affecting other people's kids and other people's investment,
Facts.
right? They put their all into their kid, and for your kid to come and shoot them up, it kind of is like, yo, what the heck? Like you're messing it up. Like that's our investment, right?
Which creates more of a bad community because like that's one more
Mm-hmm.
family member down.
That's one more family member, one more person down.
It
Yep.
helped out.
And who was responsible for it? It's really, yes, racism has a racism is the reason, the start of it, but I don't want to wait for the government to come fix it, right? Should we wait for the government to come fix it, HV?
I'm gonna ask you like this. I'm gonna ask you like this right now, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's say you and I were walking into the woods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a bear attacks. We gonna wait for the park ranger to come defend us?
Nope.
Nah, we gotta figure that shit out.
You gotta figure that shit out, right?
You gotta figure it out, man. By the time the park ranger gets there and helps us out, it's gonna be too late.
It's gonna be too late, right? The trend is already going down. That bear beating us up is the trend. It's bad. Now the trend going down, we could end up with a couple scratches, but the worst of the domino effect is the death,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Mark Twain wrote this quote. I like the quote. It says, "The world doesn't owe you anything. It was here first." So
That's
we're
right.
born in the situation. We can't just complain about it. I always say kids complain, adults just do what they need to do based off the situation. Right? And that's kind of how the
I
world
can't
is.
even say kids because I know some adults that I'm saying, and I know some kids that don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I would say maturity, but like it still applies the same way, right? Maturity will tell you, I gotta figure this out. I can't blame anyone else for this. Right?
Absolutely.
Taking accountability and responsibility for your own life, that's not up to other people. Right? I'm gonna put it like this. If I walk down the street, I'm sorry, if I drive down the street on the highway and I lose a tire, right? I'm not gonna blame everyone else on the highway for my tire being messed up.
No,
I'm gonna
you
blame the
can't.
taxpayers' money for messing up the roads. I'm gonna blame this person, that person. No,
You
I'm
still got to fix your tire.
responsible. I may not be at fault for the tire popping. The car, it popped. The tire popped. It happened. Shit happens, right? It's my circumstance. It's my situation, though. So who do I gotta blame for that? Nobody. I don't have to blame anyone. And if I did,
It's not gonna help me.
It's not gonna help you in this situation.
Accountability, I take responsibility. I'm gonna take action. And when I take action, I can fix this problem. Meaning, I'm gonna get the tire out the back of the car, put it on the car, and now flip the other tire, put it in the back of the car, and I keep moving, right? I mean, that's me. That's me taking responsibility and accountability for what just occurred. I may not have been the reason why it happened. I may not be the cause of it happening, but I'm fixing it.
You're fixing it. You gotta fix it. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, here are the benefits of a two-parent household, man. The 8 things kids need to survive: security. Kids must feel safe and sound with their basic survival needs met: shelter, food, clothing, medical care, and protection from harm. Stability comes from family and community. Ideally, a family remains together in a stable household, but when it's not possible, it's important to disrupt that child's life as little as possible. Kids and families should be a part of large units to give them a sense of belonging, tradition, and cultural continuation or continuity. Consistency. No good cop, no bad cop. Parents should synchronize their parenting and make sure important values stay consistent. Emotional support. Parents' words and actions should encourage kids' trust, respect, self-esteem, and ultimately independence. Love. Saying and showing you love your kids can overcome almost any parenting mistakes you might make, even when your kids have disobeyed, angered, frustrated, and rebelled against you. Show them you love them and that you will always love them. Education. Make sure your kids get the best possible education. And that's the benefit of a two-parent household, right? You cut that in half. You cut that in half when you only have one parent, right?
All right. So before you go to the next slide,
Yeah.
I had to find it in my phone real quick. So
Very
it's
good.
called Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was by Saul McLeod, published in 2007, updated in 2014. Um, Basically, there was a 5-stage model, right, where everyone needs physiological needs, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization,
Mm.
right? Physiological needs are like sleep, water. Um, Safety needs are like shelter, an umbrella from the sun, stuff like that. Social needs are like love and belonging, being part of a community, being part of your having friends at school, having a strong foundation at home, someone I can go to for advice, right? Esteem needs, right? You get an award, you get an award, you do something, and like let's say you win a race, letting you know that I'm here to support you, right? And that I encourage you to keep doing this. Or you failed, right? And you came in last place. It's okay. It's okay. You can do better next time. We're gonna train. We're gonna be there, right? And then self actualization, that you did for yourself, and now you have to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So these were the 5 basic needs that every human must have in order to actually move past the next level of living, right? If you're not doing that, if you don't have those needs met, you're still struggling and you're still contemplating a lot of things because your basic needs are not met.
That's right.
When these basic needs aren't met, how can you have a household where it's supportive or growing, right? You can't. So those basic needs are all on this list right here: love, emotional
Absolutely.
support, consistency, stability, security, education.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff is there. Basic needs come from who?
Your
Parents,
parents.
because you can't do it for yourself yet.
You can't do it for yourself
So
yet.
if the basic needs aren't met, you're gonna have trauma.
You're gonna have trauma. Remember what my man said. Trauma is not only what happens to you, but also
What
what
doesn't
didn't
happen?
happen to you.
If I didn't have food every day, trauma.
Trauma.
If I didn't
Mm.
have love every time I received an award or I did something great,
Trauma.
trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? As small as that may be to someone else, that's traumatic to them.
It's
No one
traumatic
was
to you.
there for me when every time I accomplished something. So why did I care about doing great things? I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mindset some people have.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
we're closing in on 2 hours, but this information is so necessary, like
Yeah,
so needed. Like people, you listen to you if you go through this PowerPoint, like there's no way that you get out of this that you should not. before you have a kid, you need to establish a 2-parent household.
Mm-hmm.
And
you should know this person you're gonna be with and their parenting style.
mm-hmm.
That's why they say y'all should, like, modern day relationships should go to therapy, counseling, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And that's why they say equally yoked.
Yeah, you need to be on the same page.
You need to be on the same page. Like if you moving, your partner's moving with you. There's no, I'm not moving because I don't like what's going on here.
And if you don't, then that leads to division.
Division.
Division. Was Abraham Lincoln? A house divided cannot stand.
Cannot stand. That's a fact.
Right? I wrote a poem back in the day. It's called "Divide and Conquer." What's the easy way to divide people? Oh, to conquer lands. Is to divide them. Right? I'm not gonna go over the whole poem. That's a long poem. But what's the easy way to conquer people? If I separate you over here, I separate you over there. Conquer. So you can conquer both the parents and the child when you do that.
Yep. And I like that it says here that they need a big family unit because relationships is key in life.
Mm-hmm.
It could help you move up financially. It could benefit you emotionally. You could have a cousin that you close with that help you. But if you have a bunch of broken families, you might not be able to have access to your father's family or your mom's family, right? Which will give you insight that you might not have had if you just had one family. But if you had two with both of their family resources, because not only you're not getting those parents, but you're getting their family members. And when you take out one, you remove you remove a whole bunch of families that should have been there, right? A cousin, an uncle, an auntie, a friend of that cousin. You lose all those access just because you separated them. You really lessen the probability of survival for them, right?
Facts.
And then you lessen the potential income of that child, right? So it says the emotional health of children is directly tied to the emotional experience they have within the household. A separate household means bad emotional experiences. A child raised in an environment filled with constant fighting, abuse, neglect, or tension is not going to thrive the way a child in a peaceful home will. The stress that children face in the midst of volatile households can take a toll on a child's emotional development and lead to psychological issues such as depression and addiction in the future. Studies show that children from single-parent households are more likely to have a stronger bond with their singular parent and are more apt to know how to work together to obtain common goals. On the other hand, being in a happy 2-parent home is a huge boost to a child's self-esteem. And self-esteem is so important because self-esteem is confidence. Self-esteem is less destructive behaviors, right? Not having a child out of wedlock is oftentimes due to low self-esteem. I mean, having a child out of wedlock is oftentimes due to low self-esteem. So self-esteem is a big thing with school, relationships. How do you build relationships? How do you start relationships? All that is due to low self-esteem. We go for these last couple slides. All right. What are the social benefits of marriage? Marriage, the union of one man and one woman, is a personal but not private relationship with great public significance. Marriage is good for the couple. It is also provides the optimal conditions for bearing and raising children. Marriage makes an essential contribution to the common goal. Some specific benefits are identified below. Marriage and health. On average, husbands and wives are healthier, happier, and enjoy longer lives than those who are not married. Men appear to reap the most physical health benefits from marriage and suffer the greatest health consequences if they divorce. So it benefits both men and women, right? Married mothers have lower rates of depression than single or cohabitating mothers. So married women, because the depression leads because of the stress, right? The stress of doing it by themselves. Probably because they are more likely to receive practical and emotional support from their child's father and family. The family can help. The child's mom, the child's father, child's uncle, the child's auntie. Marriage and wealth. Marriage couples build more wealth on average than singles or cohabitating couples. It's like a nest, right? It's better to have two birds help build that nest instead of one bird help build that nest, right? Married men earn more money than do single men with similar education and job history. Because again, having that partner by your side a lot frees you up to do more things. Married women are economically better off than divorced, cohabitating, or never married women. So getting married as a woman helps you experience life better because you have more money, right? So these are just the benefits of marriage, right? Again, I don't want to force, I'm not saying that everybody has to get married. All I'm saying is that children, if they're going to be born, they need to be born in a two. I want a two family house with structure. And usually marriage brings that structure. Right? It's a whole bunch of other things too. Marriage and society. The institution of marriage reliable creates the social, economic, and effective conditions for effective parenting. So a reliable marriage basically builds a good structure for parenting, right? If you don't have a marriage, it kind of deteriorates because marriage makes sure before you get into a marriage, you have to be one to get in there, which means that you're going to have to be one to raise the child, right? HV, I don't know. You tell me. You know more than me.
You should be. That's all I switch it to. You should be.
You should be.
Because not everyone is.
Not everyone is.
Right? Like, we all know that drinking can cause issues.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone stops drinking.
That's a fact.
Right? You should stop drinking, but not everyone does. But you are aware of what happens to it, whether you experience it or whether you have the knowledge behind it. And now that you're taking it, if you're presented two options, right? Drink, have a good life, your liver's good, or I'm sorry, drink and your liver's messed up, or don't drink and your liver's good, right? You know that's gonna happen. What do you choose? Everyone's like, well, I don't care about my liver. That's so long down the line. I can control it. I can just drink a little bit here and there, and then, right, make excuses. And next thing you know, their liver's messed up, right? There's the person that didn't drink. They're like, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. Their liver's good. At the end of the day, it's like you have the information. It's all up to you, right?
It's all you to make the decision.
But it's not like you're gonna do what you should do. We always make mistakes. We're humans at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But now that you have this information, you can make the best informed choice.
Best informed choice. And again, because we can't force people to put a ring on everybody, right? But the awareness.
If you're gonna have a child with somebody, if you're going to have a child with somebody, you should have a child with somebody that, one, you want to spend your life with, and two, that you think is going to be a great parent with the child you're going to have with them.
That's a fact. And also, if you making that decision, equally yoke is important, because if you don't have one in mind before you have that child, then you could affect the child itself. You got to be together on and raising a child, because one parent might see it one way, another parent might see it one way, and that might lead to the destruction of the child. You telling the child two different things, right?
Yeah, you definitely. So something my wife and I agree was like, yo, there's some things that we want to do differently, right? But we'll put it like this, right? When it comes time to it, we've had discussions about things as they happen, and we also try to prepare as much as we can ahead of time. But there's some things we're just naturally going to disagree on, right? It just happens. We're human. We're not the same. We're unique for a reason, right? So we're different for a reason, to be unique. So there's going to be a point in time where our daughter is going to do something, and we're going to have different approaches about it. However, we need to come in front of our daughter as a unified source, right? So before we talk to our daughter, we're going to talk to ourselves and each other, right? Come to the same agreement and then go address it. Because if we don't, divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Children know how to do that. If they see that there's not a unified structure, oh, but mom said, oh, but mom, dad said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like, no. Your mom and I discussed this already. You're doing this.
Mm-hmm. And it
Completely
can build resentment for one parent too.
Exactly.
Absolutely, right? Which then hinders the child, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of communication. Like, you should do this with this person, but then
Absolutely,
it's up to you. Communication is key.
absolutely. And marriage offers money. Two incomes better than one.
Always.
Always. We're gonna skip this one. It's just saying that the suicide death of black males ages 15 and 24 has increased over the years, and the homicide rate, the highest being 1990, as we saw previously. But marriage is associated with better mental and physical health, not only for adults but only for the children too. All right. Let's see. Do we need this one? No, we don't need this one. Right? Marriage benefits on society, right? The social health and economic gifts of marriage lead to stronger communities and societies. Safer homes, marriage help makes homes safer places to live because it curbs social problems such as domestic violence. Safer communities because they're less likely to be plagued by substance abusers or crimes committed by young people because you have more people supervising them. Marriage also helps to prevent premarital sex out of wedlock. So we can see that there's a cycle too, bro. Like because there's no marriages, we're having babies out of wedlock, which means more dysfunctional kids, which means more wedlock babies, which means it just keeps going. Because young people raised by married parents are less likely to have sex before marriage because they understand the importance of marriage, right?
Mm.
Of course, poverty, less poverty, more wealth. The economic benefits of marriage for society includes less poverty and welfare dependency because usually if you're a single parent, you're dependent on the government, which
Right.
then means that you're depending on taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and taxes go to who? Come from me and you. But we could use the tax money for another thing. We're using the tax money for something else, right? When two parents could alleviate that, right? That's a whole different topic. Um, Married people are more healthier, and divorce, on the hand, is likely to breed. Divorced adults, more marriages, less divorce. Married parents' homes are more likely to produce young adults who view marriage positively and maintain lifelong marriages. So divorce is also a negative thing on your children too. It's a like every action has a reaction, man. That's just what it is, right? Negative reactions are gonna incur negative reactions. Positive reactions are gonna incur positive reactions. Here's some examples of the environment. We got probably like what 10, 15 minutes left. LeBron. When the Walker family agreed to take in LeBron, it was not to take him away from Gloria. It was simply to give him a place to stay, a family to help him feel secure. They had no clue that the NBA was in his future. They just wanted to help him avoid a future that include drugs, jail, and other destruction that ravaged inner city boys and men.
Wow.
So LeBron, and there's a lot of athletes go through this too. We seen that. I forgot there's a show where an athlete moved from one family to another, and it's because if they're in a certain environment for a long time, it could affect their outcome. Imagine if LeBron stayed in that area. The amount of that corn reference that you made, you would have took out somebody that would have influenced millions of people.
Mm-hmm. And he's paving the way for a lot of kids to go to college.
A lot of kids to go to college. So we have to think that way. We have to think that every child has the ability to change the future. Every child.
Every
They
child
do.
does change the future.
Because it does. Well, we have to treat them like that, and if we want to treat them like that, we have to have two instead of one, right? And it's also having two parents, like I said, good for the mom, less likely to have trouble in pregnancy, healthier births just because having two parents, lower parental stress because stress ages you, right? Stress actually ages the body and deteriorates the body, right? I saw a study that says white women have a higher fertility rate because they have less stress than black women. Our highest fertility rate is during teenage years. White women highest fertility rate is in their 20s. And the reason why is because black women have more stress during pregnancy than white women. So we're affecting our future. Like having a father there helps that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I put here, as humans, the relationships we form with other people are vital to our mental and emotional well-being and even our survival. Humans have an inherent desire to be close to other people to connect and build relationships. Trust is a contract that constantly has to be renewed,
That's facts.
right? That's in everything. You see that in sports, right? The more you perform in sports, the higher the contract is. The same thing in life. Your friends are your friends because you have built that relationship for an extended period of time and you kept renewing the trust that you have for them. And some friends you don't trust the same way because you haven't built that relationship with them.
Let's break that down first. Like, go back to the first one, right? You said
Uh-huh.
sports, right? Every year you perform really good, right? Let's say you had a terrible year. And, when they sign you over again, you're going to probably have a lower contract.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a lower pay, right? But the trust is that contract's always renewed every year. So you do good, you're gonna have a greater fund or a greater proceeds or whatever the case may be, whatever funds that they're gonna give you. It's gonna be higher the higher you perform, the better you do.
Yep.
The better you do, the more trust you have, the more money you get. Same with your friends. The more that you keep showing up for them on the small things, right? The more they're gonna call you on some bigger matters. And the more you can call on them for bigger matters. Daddy? Yes, baby. Doesn't need anything right now. But yeah, like you're gonna have to build those relationships and work on them constantly.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you do it, the more that you're going to have a greater bond with that person.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And you can see the bond right there. Your daughter coming over, daddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's pretending to eat.
That's good. Right. Less stress, better healing, healthier behaviors, great sense of purpose, longer life. All that is attributed to having relationships in your life. You can pause this video and read through the slide. But knowing someone loves you and supports you when you're going through your day, even if the person is not physically present, is a mental health booster, says Dr. Fisher. Right? So just knowing somebody's there, like knowing that you're not mad at that person has your back, is important. So this is talking to black men specifically, but hopefully, it touches a greater audience. But for the men that's watching it, it's a greater responsibility for us to make sure that we have intact families. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. Like,
this is facts, yo. All right, so go back real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing someone loves and supports you, even when you're going throughout your day, even if the person not physically present, is a mental health booster. All right, so I came from foster care. I'm not gonna say what happened, but something occurred, and I no longer live with my foster mom, right? And I was in and out of homelessness, and I was constantly battling, like, yo, I'm on my own here, man, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my own, and that created a sense of loneliness, right? Even when I was around friends or was around people, I felt lonely. Because lonely is an emotion, right? I may not have been alone, but I felt lonely, and it wasn't until I started opening up about what happened in my life and started talking to people, I started having genuine connections again, right? The first person I was able to do that with is my current wife, right? At the time she was like my girlfriend, and I opened up to her about what happened, talked to her, connected with me, and I was able to reconnect with my biological family, at least part of them, And then I was able to grow stronger relationships with my friends. And
Mm-hmm.
as time went on, and I started realizing I have strong, intimate relationships, that sense of belonging or sense of self or sense of purpose for other people came back, and it grew even stronger, right? So I was able to find purpose in things for other people. Because before, when I did not have a sense of, oh, someone cares about me, like, why should I care about other people? Why should I care about this? Why should I care about that? I'm just going through life through the motions. I felt like I was existing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now I feel like I'm living. I'm doing things. I'm helping people. People are there for me. I'm there for them. There's love. I feel it. I give it. I receive it. I give it. Um, and I'm teaching it too because
Mm-hmm.
I had to do that on my own first.
Yep.
The greatest relationship you could ever have with anyone is the one you have with yourself first.
Yep.
But the key is this stems from your parents. The voice in your head that you hear all the time, when you close your mouth and you still talk and you hear it,
Mm.
that voice is created by the things your parents told you growing up.
Consistently too. It's not just one time. It's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
get what you're
when your parents put you down, and next time you fail at something and you put yourself down, that's not you speaking to yourself. That's your parents talking to you through
Mm.
your memories, and you're allowing that still to be there. And then you haven't worked on that, it's gonna be terrible. But if your parents always uplifted you and helped you and catered to you and taught you good things, that voice is gonna be in your head, right? And you're gonna
Yep.
be remember that. So when you do succeed in things, or when you do struggle with things, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I can still get through it. I got this. One more step. Let's get to it. Because you're
Yep.
gonna hear that voice.
You get
So
that
just knowing
voice.
someone's present for you is a mental health booster, even if you're not physically there, because you're still, you know what I'm saying, have that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essential.
Very essential. Very essential. Having that person to show you love. Remember, the absence of love
Mm,
creates trauma.
that's
All right.
facts.
Come on, we're going right back. Remember, again, it's not about the things that happen to you, it's the things that isn't there either. Right? The theme is just reoccurring. Right? But in our community, because we have so much single mothers, I don't want to just say like it's hopeless because you're a single mom. It's not hopeless, right? They could feel that way going through the PowerPoint, but it's not because I was raised by a single mom. You wasn't raised by your biological parents, so there's always a chance. Of course, there's always a chance. There's always high. There's always a possibility, right? We're just saying that hey, having two parents increases the possibility of success,
Absolutely.
right? So children do well when they're nurturing, when they have nutrients,
Close the door, Mama.
warmth, sensitivity, responsive,
Close the door.
and flexible parenting, right? They have to be nurtured. They have to be. You have to warm the children. You have to be sensitive to them. You have to be responsive to them. Strong relationship with children are built on positive attention, quality time, right? Which is going to be difficult being a single mom, right? And interest. You got to be interested in what your kids want to do, right? Making one-on-one time. If you have more than one child, try to make some regular time alone with each child. It could be a book before bed with a younger child or a quiet game with an older child when the younger one is asleep. Clear rules and limits encourage positive behaviors and help children feel secure, right? Definitely. Kids definitely got to have clear rules and behavior, right? Try to be consistent. If your families have experienced a separation or other major changes, you might feel reluctant to follow on rules and consequences. You might feel that your child has been through enough. But if you guide your child's behavior in a consistent way, it sends the message that some things like rules don't change, right? And if a child thinks that rules change, it could affect their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they could be thinking, well, that rule doesn't apply to me all the time. It's not going to happen to me, right? But no, the rule doesn't change just because things change, right? This not only encourages positive behavior, but it also gives your child the security and consistency they need. Routines encourage positive behavior because they make it clear who should do what, when, and in what order and how often. They also help family members run smoothly. This can give you more time for doing enjoyable things with your child, which is good for your relationship and your child's well being. Get support from your family, friends, or professionals from grown-up issues. Looking after yourself is good for you and good for your children. Of course, these are all information that single mothers could utilize. But again, you have to apply them, especially the routine and the consistency part. Again, the brain needs that because the brain needs that muscle to grow, the habits to build. If they don't have those habits, they're going to fall into bad habits. And when you mix in all the things that black men have to go through and black women have to go through, it's going to make it trouble for them if they don't have those initial habits.
Facts.
You got anything to say on that?
Nah, that's self-explanatory.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Equally yoked, friendship, right? The purpose of thinking is to let the ideas die instead of us dying, right? We have all this information here, right? You could use this information to process every decision that you make, right? You see the outcome of what happens if you only have one parent compared to two. We're allowing the ideas to die. The idea of single parenthood should die today, right? Because me taking care of this child by you taking care of this child by yourself should come into your mind all these factors. It's not saying to stay in a bad relationship, but it's saying to put this into account when you're raising your child, right? Being equally yoked with that person, understanding that outliers does not mean that just because there are some single parents that make it does not mean that that is
The standard.
a good decision. It's kind of like jumping off a building, right? 100 people could jump off the building. Just because 2 survived don't mean you should jump off the building.
Right. 98% died or got injured.
Right?
Clearly
Accountability. You got to take accountability for your actions because, again, the world does not owe you understanding. Your actions are your actions, and you cannot take your actions back, big or small. Right? And you're just hoping that you don't make a lot of big actions that have negative consequences to them. You know what I'm saying? Marriage in the Bible. I'm gonna just skip this. I'm gonna go through this a little bit because we only got 3 slides left. But the reason why I put the Bible here is because the Bible is a historical record of humans in the past. Right? People use it for religious reasons, but it's actually a historical record for people in the past. All right. And one of the verses in Exodus 22, 16 and 17 says that if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price and she shall be his wife. Notice, if a man sleeps with a woman back then, think about the time frame back then. There is no condoms. There is no birth control. There is no abortions. So if you go sleep with a woman, it's a very high chance that you're going to have a baby. So the Bible is saying, hey, listen, you about to sleep with this woman, you better make her your wife.
Right.
If her father absolutely refused to give her to him, he must still pay the bride's price for virgin. Because you don't know the father's, the person only pays the fee because, hey, you don't know if that there's a baby that comes out of that relationship. Marriage is the best protection against a life of poverty, but the loss of virginity before marriage is a finalized of damage that women's chances of finding a good match, which is back then. Back then, if you wasn't a virgin back then, a lot of you wouldn't be a good match. Now it's a little bit different because of modern times and the feminist movement, but the fact hold to the T that if you don't get married or before you have a child, there's negative outcomes to it.
That's a nice.
Right? And here's the final slide right here. What's he feeding you, man?
Feeding me air, man. If you don't pretend, you.
You don't pretend like you actually eating, man. It's gonna be trouble.
It's gonna be trouble. The final slide is you can't go through life holding baggage expecting to get to the future. Adolescence is a crucial period for developing social and emotional habits important for mental well-being. This includes adopting healthy sleeping patterns, exercise regularly, developing coping, problem solving, and interpersonal skills, and learning to manage emotions. Protective and supportive environments in the family, at school, and in wider community is important. Um, and multiple factors affect mental health. The more risk factors adolescents are exposed to, the greater the potential impact on the mental health. Factors that contribute to stress during adolescence include exposure to adversity, pressure to conform with peers, and exploitation of identity. Media influence and gender norms can exacerbate the disparity between an adolescent's lived reality and the perception and aspiration for the future. Other important determinants include the quality of home life and relationship with peers. Violence, especially sexual violence and bullying, harsh parenting, and severe and social economic problems are recognized as risks to mental health, right? And most of these issues that we see in this paragraph could be alleviated with sleeping. And that's it. HV, we just crushed this PowerPoint right here.
Thank you for helping.
Any final thoughts, man?
Yeah, go back one slide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right there. I'm not gonna get too far into it, but there's an energetic field that goes into play when you talk about sleeping with another person before marriage too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you gotta think about it. The more that you link with someone else up, right? The more you adopt more of their behavior, their tendencies, the way that they do things, right? And the more you are with someone else, the more you start comparing the person you're supposed to be with, right? The more you start comparing them to the other people you've been with, right? You can always make a relationship work when this is your first time. Like you're gonna make it work. You're blinded by that puppy love, but you're blinded by that.
Easier. It's easier, definitely.
When you got somebody to compare everything to, you're like, damn, I kind of want this. Look what she did this. Well, my ex did that, right? And you start doing all that thing, right? You appreciate the person you're with less. You value them less. You look at them differently. So
absolutely.
It may not always explain things like that biblically, but there is that underlying factor that how you perceive this individual because of all the things you've been with before is less than the things than they actually are, and you should always value them and appreciate them no matter what. So again, before going into a relationship with someone, before getting into marriage with them, understanding that if I'm going to be with you, I'm not going to compare you to other people. It's going to be you. Right? You want to value them and appreciate them for who they are, not who they're compared to.
And going back to what you said, I was reading something a couple weeks ago that says when a woman experiences orgasm with a man, it triggers emotional connection to the man.
Yeah, there's a chemical reaction that happens inside the brain that makes them attach to that individual. Whether they want to or not, it's gonna happen.
So there is definitely underlying remember, the Bible was written after 8,000 years of human history.
Yeah.
So they have a record of human behavior. I always say that history is just history repeats itself because humans repeat behaviors.
Now, the best thing about this is the Bible was written in a time where technology wasn't so prevalent, or modern technology wasn't so prevalent. So human behavior was at its peak. You know what I'm saying? How people behaved was the same way that it was for 8,000 years.
That's a fact. So you could see the trend in human behavior. That's why they wrote it down, so they could be like, and they put it in the laws because they realized that when these behaviors occur, this is what happens in society. So now let's make these laws so that we could stop these behaviors or control these, because that's what laws are, to control behavior, right? And if this law wasn't there would be chaos. There would be a bunch of women that don't know who their husband is because there's no pregnancy test back then.
You mean who the father of their child is?
Oh, who their father is. Yep. Who the
Yeah.
father is of the child, right? That's why the term bastard came into play. Because you're an illegitimate child because you're outside of marriage, right? So the behavior itself for years have been frowned upon. Birth out of wedlock. It's been frowned upon for years. Human history has frowned upon it for years. So because of the detriment it does to society and community.
And for years, that was the detriment that they were focusing on. And now we see how it comes into play in modern society as well. So whether you're looking at it as like a biblical thing for God, whether you're looking at it like a psychological thing for your future to treat you and honor you and respect your spouse more, or whether you're looking at it as I want to make sure I have the best legacy for my child, just making sure you have a child with the person you're supposed to, and not just some random person, and you actually married with this person, and you make sure you did everything you're supposed to do with this person before having the child, is beneficial for you, that person, the child, your village, your family, and everyone else in your community.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter how you look at it, spiritual, science, emotional, it's just the best thing to do.
And also, some people might be like, well, people get divorced and not all marriages are successful.
That is true.
That is true. However, the more marriages we have, the more good children we have, and the better opportunity that it is for the child.
Agreed. It's not about the fact that people have divorce. There's always going to be an outlier, like we said earlier, right? Let me get back to you. There's always going to be an outlier. So it's not about if people get divorced. It's about how can we make sure we have the best future possible for not just ourselves, but our community.
For our community. For our community, for our child.
Be as intentional as we can with our actions and our decisions, right? As much as we can. We're not going to be perfect, but let's do the best we can.
Absolutely. And with that, we end the podcast.
Yeah.
I can see it already. Like, man, I'm gonna buy a big house. I'm gonna buy a big car, big Benz. I'm gonna get my mom out the crib. I'm gonna get my family out the crib. Like, everybody's gonna hear my name. Damn. This morning I just woke up black. Race don't exist, but I woke up black. Sun in my face, I just woke up black. In this white man world, I just woke up black. This morning I just woke up black. Race don't exist, but I woke up black.